Welcome into another edition of the Sports Edge podcast. I'm your host and Commissioner Dan Stanzik, joined as usual by two-time champ Justin the Guru Iser. Guru, this one snuck up on me. It's trade deadline week. How we doing?
Good. I know. I didn't know it was trade deadline week either till we talked about the.
I thought you
show.
say till right now. The deadline's Saturday.
No. I knew about it earlier today. Thanks to you.
There you go. And joining us as well, reluctantly on our part, as we had a guest cancel today, is Steve Curtis. Steve, welcome back to the podcast.
Thrilled to be here. You guys got me feeling like Matt Damon, like the Kimmel show. You know, I've been just belittled segment after segment, show after show, and finally the enemy is in your house.
Everybody knows that the easiest way to get on the pod is to beat the commish. And unfortunately, I have 5 losses on the season, so it's getting easier to get invited. But we do appreciate your time. Thank you for doing this. We have plenty to get to tonight, including some fake trades. First, though, we will recap Week 10, and we'll try to keep this one quick because Walk This Way, that's Steve's team, stomped all over the Stanzics and avenged their Week 1 loss. Jamar Chase with 49.9 fantasy points on Thursday night. It was the most by far in a game this season. The previous high was Alvin Kamara, who had 43 in Week 2. Chase's total is the 6th highest since 2020. I have 2 of you available to guess. Throw as many guesses as you would like. Who do you think is in the top 5? Most points scored since 2020. Chase is 6th with 49.9. So this top 5 is all going to be 50 plus.
I have a memory of Jonathan Taylor doing it.
Jonathan Taylor is, third on the list. He had 51.9 in 2021. Yeah. Taylor is now a member of your team, Guru, but at the time he was a member of Walshed Ashore, a great old team name in the league history.
Okay. I know Chase had another one back in 2021.
Steve Curtis. Wow. Chase is 5th on the list. He's also 6th, as we just mentioned. He is 5th. He had 50.1 in 2021. The only difference in his stat line is just 2 more yards. It was the same amount of catches, 11, the same amount of touchdowns, 3. It was 266 yards that time, 264 yards last time, or something to the effect. It was just 2 yards different. So he is 5th. You guys are 2 for 2. Yeah, if we were playing Family Feud, I would ask Guru if he would like to play or pass. But I'll just have you both keep guessing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll play at least one more. I'm pretty sure Tyreek Hill had a big one.
Look, guys, did you do your homework? Are you cheating? Because Tyreek Hill is 4th. He had a 51.4 outing in 2020. So now we are just missing number 1 and number 2.
All right, so I think I got one of them. Alvin Kamara for Robbie. It was either Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, the year that he won the league.
I feel like you guys looked this up and are playing some sort of prank.
I swear to God, I did.
He is number 1. 54.7 in 2020 was the highest by a player since 2020. It's 54.7. We are currently only missing 2nd place.
I'm out at this point, but I'm thinking, is this non-quarterback? So there's got to be a quarterback in here.
There are no quarterbacks. The highest quarterback on the list is Mahomes in 2020. He scored 48 points.
Okay. I'm out.
Which is good for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Mahomes is 8th.
Okay.
I mean, I'll throw a dart. I have 2 names here. CeeDee Lamb. I know he had 40-something earlier this year, I think. So I had him and I had McCaffrey on my list as maybes, but I don't know.
Both incorrect. The correct answer is Joe Mixon, who had 53.1 in 2022 for the Stanzics, who scored a league-high 195 points that week and beat Zans by over 100. Joe Mixon, I think he had 5 touchdowns. It's one of those.
I wouldn't have got that one. The other ones were gettable, I think. That was tough.
Yeah, 6th place, Jamar Chase, as you mentioned. I thought someone would guess Devon Achane, who had 49.3 last season in Week 3. I think it was his first game. He was on Kess's bench, but that was a memorable one that I thought of. And then Dalvin Cook is in 9th place. He had 47.6 in 2020 when he was still a member of the Vikings. But that was painful because it was talking about Steve's team beating mine by a lot of points. So we'll move on to you, the Guru. The Guru's Man Rockets soared past Georgie Juice One to put you back in playoff contention. You have now won 3 games this season when scoring 105 or less points. All of the other contenders, will say the 6 teams ahead of you in the standings, have only combined won 2 such games. Zans won 1 in Week 2, Walsh won 1 in Week 4. So I got to ask you, Guru, do you feel lucky?
Yes. I think we're playing good defense. That's all I can say. We're playing good defense. Feels a little bit like I think I need to have a defense on my team, like Hoban, circa that crazy run that he had. But yeah, I mean, I do feel lucky. I keep looking at my team thinking this isn't a playoff team. But I'm hanging around. So we'll get a little bit more into that in the trade talk. But yeah, I definitely feel lucky. This is a little bit crazy, but I was happy to get a win. At this point, I'm like rooting to cross 100 points, which is pretty pathetic.
Well, you got the victory. I'm jealous. But what can I say? We still have plenty of season to go. We will keep it moving. Don't look now, but the Sun God's disciples have won 3 straight, and they are just a game out of the 6th seed. We talked about this a little last week. Hathaway is not out of it. Definitely avert your eyes of Bowers Castle. They have now dropped 9 straight games after beating Hath in week 1. That is 9 straight losses, which means he has lost to every team in the league in consecutive order. The 9-game losing streak is tied for, let me make sure I get this correctly, for the 4th longest in league history. Anyone have any guesses as to which managers are among the top 5 in losing streaks in league history?
I mean,
I think we all know number 1, or we
I
should.
know
You
one
should
of
get
them.
number 1.
Yeah, the easiest one is Bill Dwyer.
Dwyer does have the record. He lost 13 straight in 2020. That is all of the games in 2020. And in case you're wondering, he won his last game in 2012, or excuse me, in 2019, and then won
2019.
his first game in 2021. So it's just a 13-game streak, an entire season.
Yeah, so that one I
Dwyer's
felt
number 1.
I knew
Yeah.
that one.
It's impressive, honestly. I mean, it's got to be Glancy or Max also
I
have
was
to be
thinking
in
Max
there.
too, Steve. That was in my head. Is it Max?
Max is not on this list,
Wow.
actually. And I have a list of, I think it's 12. Max somehow is not on this list. Glancy is on the list. He is tied for 5th with
Hmm.
9 straight. Oh, which means I guess Hoban's is 9. So he's tied for 5th. I had to do an adjustment. Hoban is tied for 5th all time, longest. Glancy lost 9 straight in 2012.
Um, I'm gonna go Walsh.
A the most recent one I added because I missed it. Walsh is actually tied for 2nd with a 10-game losing streak, and it spans 2 seasons. He lost 4 straight to end 2020, 6 straight to start 2021.
Okay. How many were we missing
Woof.
at this point?
So we have Glancy and Walsh crossed off,
And Dwyer.
and we have Dwyer crossed off. So you are still missing, if you want to round out the top 5, you're missing 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 because we got a lot of ties.
Wow.
I'll throw myself out there. It's been a rebuild for a couple of years, so it wouldn't
I,
surprise me.
I
But I
am
don't
I
think
am
I had anything
surprised
that bad.
that the guru didn't lean your way, Steve. You are actually tied for 5th. You have a 9-game losing streak, as Hoban just clinched a 9-game losing streak as well. Yours also spanned 2 seasons, though. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but for the sake of continuity here, you lost 6 straight to end 2016 and 3 straight to start 2017. So you're tied for 5th with 9 straight.
It felt like
We don't
it,
have to make any more guesses. I can just read you the list. But
yeah,
what do
you
you think
can.
your longest losing streak is before I finish the list?
Gosh, I hope it's not that long. 4.
No, it is 6. You lost 6 straight in 2009, and I will say every manager in the league has lost at least 6 straight. So Pete
Okay.
lost 6 straight in 2017. Half lost 6 straight from 2013, 2014. The Commish lost 6 straight, spanning from 2012 to 2013. We'll go back to the top of the list. Dwyer with 13 in 2020. That's number 1. Tied for 2nd, Hoban lost 10 straight, 2017, 2018, 8 straight to lose to end 2017, 2 to start 2018. And then Tyler Biratella in
Oh,
2010, 2011. He lost 10 straight as well, 5 straight to end 2010 and 5 straight to start 2011. The only other one in the top 5 that we didn't mention was Robbie, who lost 9 straight in 2014. Kess lost 8 straight in 2009, which puts him in a tie for 10th. And Zanz lost 8 straight in 2016. So there are your longest losing streaks. Hoban, welcome back to the club. I guess if you lose this week, you can tie yourself again for 2nd place. But Dwyer's record is still intact, at least for another month. But we move on. Robbie beat Kess by 40, sits alone in 4th place at 6-4. Kess the doctor, has dropped 3 in a row. He finished the season with you, Guru, then
Yeah.
Hoban, then Zans, and then you, Steve. So I'll ask you both. Which of those games do you think the doc wants to win the most? Guru, we'll start with you. Again, his games are against you, Hoban, Zans, and Steve.
Yeah.
Who does he want to beat the most? He's out of it. He's not making the playoffs.
Yeah, so I feel like the answer's got to be Hoban, right? Like you don't want to be the one that breaks the Hoban streak. So assuming that who's Hoban's got, he's got half this week. So assuming that
He just
he,
beat half, or just lost
oh,
half,
I'm
excuse
you're
me.
right, you're right.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Hoban's got me this week.
I'm looking at week 10. That's right, he's got Steve. So assuming Steve takes care of business, if I'm Cass,
Never a safe assumption. Never a safe
I know
assumption.
we know that from
Yeah.
week one.
Yeah.
Hoban would be my answer for that.
That's a good answer. I didn't even think that way. Steve, who do you think the answer is?
Same answer. So I was junior year, I was abroad and lived at the beach. No big deal, pretty cool. But did they live together? I feel like there's something bubbling between beneath
They
the
did
surface
not
here.
live together, but they spent a lot of time in the same houses together. They are former
Okay.
baseball teammates, if
Okay,
that
so instead of the
factors in.
housemate angle, I'll go the teammate angle. But yeah, I had Hoban as well. You don't want to be the guy that he breaks the streak against.
That's probably the right answer. I'm going to say you though, Steve, in a last game of the season matchup where he can do some damage, either knock you out of a first round bye, knock you out of the playoffs or something. I'm gonna pick you. The last game on the docket, the champ Zans. We don't talk about him enough. He knocked Walsh down a peg. This was matchup of the year, and Zans won by 54 points in the battle for first place. 80 points was a league low for week 10 for Walsh and a season low for Walsh. So at this point in time, you assess the title race. Where do you guys have Walsh in the pecking order? We'll say Zans is a clear number one. Steve, you and Walsh are tied record wise with Zans. I'll start with you. How would you assess? I'd say give me the top 4 title contenders, assuming Walsh is in that top 4.
Yeah, I only have 4 title contenders, so that
Wow, this
works.
guy coming on the podcast bringing takes, huh? Just this guy.
Zans, me, Walsh, and Pete, I think, are
The
class of
disrespect
the
for the
league
podcast host here. The
right now.
disrespect. It's unbelievable.
There's more coming, don't worry.
Okay.
So
Wow.
Walsh's team, I thought the loss of Godwin would have hurt him a lot more.
Yeah.
Ridley has found something the last couple weeks, so that's helped. Garrett Wilson has been pretty good the last month, so that's helped. And Walsh, is he number 4 on that list? I don't know. I think his squad's kind of boomer bust. They have a high floor because of his running backs, but his receivers could go any direction any given week. So it's a little more volatile than the other 3 teams that are up there.
Who you got? Give me a top 4.
So I think he's definitely in the top 4. I think, and just to go back to like where he's at, I mean, he still has the second most points scored. Like he's right there. I know
He's number 2 in my internal power poll.
Yeah. So I mean, bad week, but my 4, I don't feel good about taking Pete out of Steve's 4, but I would, and I'd replace him with you, Dan. I think your roster is better. I think if you get in the playoffs, you would be a more dangerous team to play. Granted, Pete has Josh Allen, but that would be my 4. Would be Zans, Walsh, Steve, you in no particular order. I think those are the title contenders.
I mean, I just threw my arms up complaining about the lack of respect that Steve was showing to the podcast host, you and I, Guru, but a pure and utter disrespect by you guys towards Robbie Godotti, who is number 3 in my power poll. I got Zans, Walsh, Robbie, Steve, then myself, and then Pete, a little dip down actually, after me, just based on my internal metrics, although he does have Zay Flowers and Ramondre Stevenson, so who knows? As we alluded to earlier, the trade deadline is Saturday. Weird day to have the trade deadline based on like the weekly calendar, but I think that was the latest date that Yahoo allowed me to make it, so I opted for that date. So in that vein, I have put together a handful of fake trades. Steve, I assume you put together a few as well. I did give you a homework assignment. And I did mention that the Guru is slacking this week. He didn't do any, but he does have comments on my fake trades that I inadvertently sent to him already. Steve, you do have trades, yes?
Yeah, I got 3 of them.
Okay, Steve has 3. I have 6. So how about I start? I'll do 2, you do 1. I'll do 2, you do 1. I'll do 2, you do 1. And see what you guys think here. Guru, I will tee you up, and then Steve, you can comment after. My first fake trade is actually a 3-way trade. First time I've done this, and everybody is excited, I assume. In this 3-way trade, Guru, I have you getting Jared Goff and Hathaway's 4th-round pick next year. Hathaway in this trade gets a 2025 second-round pick and a 2025 4th-round pick from Walsh, and Walsh gets Michael Pittman. As Steve mentioned earlier, he needs a little help in the wide receiver room, especially in the wake of Chris Godwin's season-ending injury. So I will ask you, Guru, I'll frame it this way. Who says no?
First of all, very exciting to start with a three-way. That's a
Yeah.
very exciting situation. Thanks.
Congrats on our.
We're doing
my
a three-way
first.
right now, as weird as it sounds.
Yeah, just a
Yeah.
great little menage we got going
Yeah.
here. Kind of like Inception. We got a three-way inside of a three-way.
We
So
gotta move on.
yeah, yeah. I would say Walsh says no in this situation. I
Same.
looked at it and I
Same.
thought he does need a wide receiver. Pittman's fine.
Yeah.
I don't even really play Pittman, and my team is much worse than Walsh's. So a second and a fourth to get Pittman felt like a lot, unless you're doing, a Hoban's crazy draft.
I mean, the going rate for a second-round pick these days is Ramondre Stevenson and Zay Flowers. That's what the market has told us. That's what the market told us the second-round pick is for. So if he's only getting
so then it's way too much.
Yeah, I had Walsh saying no as well, but I could see you needing a little help in the quarterback room.
Yeah.
Hathaway looking to just, get some picks for next year.
I'm okay with
Steve, what do you think of that three-way?
I think the concept's right.
Yeah.
I think the concept's right as well. I have all of those teams involved in some of my trades. So,
okay, all right.
the weaknesses. Yeah, we'll keep moving.
Okay, all right. So my second one, I have Zans sending Baker Mayfield to the Stan Zix for Tony Pollard. Who says no, Guru? And that, of course, is an indictment on Patrick Mahomes, who still has not been Patrick Mahomes since I traded you for him, Steve.
So I like this one. The question I think that you have to ask on this one is, how nervous are we about Aaron Jones? Because if Aaron Jones is really hurt.
He came back in that game on Sunday. You're mentioning the injury. He did come back.
Yeah, he came back, but now he does also have Cam Akers, so he's got the backup. But I think that's really.
I have Cam Akers, don't I?
Oh, maybe
I think somebody just picked him up yesterday.
Oh, maybe I dropped him then. I don't know.
I thought I saw him on the roster. Nevertheless, the one thing I would say, I like the idea of Zans trading Baker Mayfield for something. I think that's a good call because there's viable backups in the free agent pool. As somebody who's been recently looking at quarterbacks, as you mentioned, with an issue on my team, there's enough okay ones out there if something happened to Hurts. I think trading Baker to someone like you or someone like me and trying to get something for him is a good idea.
Steve, what do you think of that one?
Yeah, I agree. I think you could firm up the quarterback position. I don't love the idea of trading a running back. I mean, some lunatic paid $51 for the Denver rookie running back that is allegedly number one on the depth chart right now. Before the season, there was a whole bunch of pundits, you're a running back strategy. That's bitten them in the ass. I think it's the most important position in fantasy this year. So I wouldn't give up any running backs if I'm making a trade. If I'm you, I'm saying no.
Interesting. Okay. Your turn for a fake trade, Steve. Throw one at us.
Yeah, I took a bigger swing here. Trade deadline coming up. We got to figure out who's a contender and who's a pretender. Guru, I have you on the outside looking in.
I think that's
right. I think that your running back room needs some help. But I don't know that you're going to get one. I do think that you can build for the future, though, because Robbie's team needs some wide receiver help. And before this year, I had approached Guru with a trade request for Tyreek. I was rebuffed, but at this point, he's getting a little older. He would definitely fetch a first. And Robbie's right there. If he makes a move and he gets a really explosive, wide receiver one or RB1, he's right back in it. So my first one was Guru trades Tyreek to Robbie for a first.
Guru, we'll start with you. It's your team.
So I think the thought of needing to trade Tyreek has definitely crossed my mind. It is a very scary proposition. I feel like at any moment in time, he could turn back to being the guy that was one of those top scorers since 2020 or whatever in a 1 week basis. But I wrote something similar to this as well on your next trade, Stanzik. So it's could be a good segue. But I think it's reasonable. Something where Robbie gives up a first for a top tier wide receiver is spot on.
I love it. That's better. My next trade, Steve, was Robbie sending his first rounder in 2025 to Kess for Tank Dell. But I think he'd be much more inclined to send that first round pick for Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
So in my scenario, I had Robbie saying no, sending a first for Tank Dell. But if it's Tyreek Hill, then I think he would say yes.
Yeah, and I commented on that one to Stanzik. I said, great trade, just generally speaking, for that concept, right? And then I wrote, I've got many mediocre wide receivers that might fit into Robbie's room, so he could come talking to me as well. So that all ties together nicely.
Wow, Robbie. I hope you're listening. I think Tyreek Hill could be on your roster, but as long as you get it done before Saturday. My next trade is I have Hoban selling, obviously, and this involves you, Guru, sending DeAndre Hopkins and Chase Brown to you for a first and a fourth. Who says no? Steve, we'll start with you. So that's DeAndre Hopkins, Chase Brown to the Guru for a first and a fourth. Hoban obviously selling. It'd be the Guru kind of pushing his chips in the middle and going for it this year.
I don't see Hoban offering it because Chase Brown is something that you can build around. And I feel like the pick that Guru is going to get next year is probably in the 4 to 7 range. It depends on how he finishes the year. Is that high enough for Pat to feel comfortable giving up Chase? I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is what, 80 at this point? Like, that's just kind of a throwaway. So
It's
I'm
a
really looking
throwaway
at,
for Hoban, but it would be additive for the Guru.
you would think, but Mahomes is, we don't know.
He had two
We don't know with
touchdowns
that
a week
offense.
ago. DeAndre Hopkins did. So, Guru, obviously that involves you, that trade. Who says no
Yeah.
there? I assumed you would say no to that, but
Yeah, the key question
Steve
there.
seems to think that Hoban would be the one saying no.
Yeah, I mean, the scary part of that for me is, and I wrote this, is the Google really all in? I mean, I don't know if I could make that move and really go for it. Like, I just don't know if the team is there. I think, but and it's unfortunate that the trade deadline's this Saturday, because I think the interesting thing for my team would be Anthony Richardson's back in this weekend. If he has a big weekend and we maybe go back and think he's good again, that could change everything, but it'd be too late to make these trades. So at the moment, going into Saturday, it's like, I don't know. I don't know if I would trade a first and a fourth at this point, because to Steve's point earlier, which I completely agree with, I think I'm outside looking in right now. I don't know if it's worth it.
You are roiling. I can feel it. Steve, you are up. What do you got?
Pete's got two very good tight ends. He's got Kittle, who's 31, and he's got Andrews, who's 29. Relevant statistical points here because the tight end position, how long can they go? Kelsey's the exception. He's 35. And at first, I wanted to see a trade between Pete and Dan where he gets a replacement for Kelsey once Kelsey goes on to be, Taylor's whatever going forward. But I didn't think that there was any compensation that Dan would send back that would make sense. So I'm going back to the well. I'm a lover scorned here. I gave up Zay Flowers and Ramondre, but Pete and I, we got a good thing going. I need somebody to replace Dalton Kincaid because he's been hot, stinking garbage so far this year. I put a lot of stock in him. It hasn't worked out. So I have me trading Jordan Addison and a third to Pete for Mark Andrews.
I think Pete says no. I think Pete says I think he'd rather have Andrews. I don't
So
know.
let me ask.
I
Let
don't
me
know if
ask you
Jordan
this.
Addison's doing much for him.
I understand that point. I have it in my notes here. It's a second or a third. If I add a second or I upgrade it to a second, does that get it done in your opinion?
I think he'd like to have a second round pick back, but I don't know if he's doing that either. Guru, you got any feel on this?
I'm looking at the rosters to see if I could think of a slight a slight variation. Um,
Like, does he want Jordan Addison? I just don't know. I mean, he's got Zay Flowers, Devontae Smith, Darnell Mooney, Debo. His wide receivers aren't, gangbusters. Keon Coleman waiting in the wings.
they're not.
I don't think Addison's a big enough improvement on the four guys currently in the starting lineup. Like, I'm not sure he starts over any of those guys.
I think the
And
tight
he
end
and he is
receivers
going
fall.
with the double tight end. He's going with Andrews
Right.
and Kittle.
Right. Right.
Um, and the fact that he has Zay Flowers and Andrews kind of gives him whoever Lamar's target is going to be that week. If he trades him, I think he'd be giving it up. I think Pete says no. Steve obviously feels like you would be saying yes. Steve, I have you involved in my fifth fake trade. I have you sending Chris Olave and Jackson Smith in Jigba to half for CD Lamb. Guru, who says no?
I think if I'm half, I say no. I think it's enticing. Um, but I think I would say no if I was Hath.
I mean, he gave you Chris Olave, almost handed you him in the offseason, Steve. So I feel like that he doesn't think highly enough of Olave. But I think that would be a worthwhile idea for you to play around with is packaging some of your receivers to getting a more elite receiver. In that scenario, I assume you do that deal.
Yeah, it'd be tough not to.
Yeah.
It'd be really tough not to. I mean, Olave's a vegetable at this point. I honestly don't know if he's going to play football again, which stinks because it seems like a good player, or whatever. But yeah, I'd probably take that one.
I've got an interesting. Let's go live trade proposal here.
Wow, he's working the trade machine, folks.
Because the note I wrote here when
We all have one left. We all have one fake trade left here,
yeah,
and,
when you
and
brought up
one
Steve,
left would be Guru's first and only.
when you brought up Steve, I made a note that said, "Would you consider trading a quarterback as somebody that has Murray and Daniels?" And I'm thinking, okay, I may or may not have a franchise quarterback anymore. I would take Kyler Murray. Would you do Kyler Murray for Tyreek Hill and a pick or something along those lines?
Are we negotiating a trade live right now? Is
I think
this
we are, and I think you put too much on the
wow?
table already.
Wow.
Just a thought. That's a thought.
I
Generally
I think
speaking,
it's
a
I think it's
receiver that would,
Kyler plus for Tyreek Hill.
you know what I
Really
mean.
lubing up this
I meant
menage
Yeah.
something
here.
in there. I think there's
We'll
something
talk.
there. You trade a
We'll
quarterback, I give you a receiver. There's something there. There's
we'll
something there.
talk.
Yep. Okay.
I
Go.
failed to mention, and shame on me for being a terrible host. And maybe I was just, thrown off by having Steve on this podcast. But all of my trade proposals are deemed as fair trades on the website keeptradecut.com. So these weren't all just like let me throw some things against the wall. I had to make sure that this trade calculator that they use viewed both sides as getting even return in the trades.
Are
Steve,
you
you have
doing
one
that
trade left.
live or
I
so
can do
you're
that one live if you want to throw your last trade out
yeah,
there.
so
So what do
here's
you
one
do
thought.
about draft picks on that thing?
You
Says
can
it
do
got,
picks. Picks are involved.
and it just knows what, does it do whole band math? Does it know that the first round's not
And
a
no, it
first?
does not do hope and math. No, no.
Okay. So so
But
let's just say there was a first round pick involved. How do you plug that in?
you enter 2025 and you can do early first, mid first, late first.
But I'm saying when you put it in, would you put in like sixth round or seventh round?
No,
Because
I would still do a first round pick because that incorporates, I mean, in all of these dynasty leagues, the first round pick is mainly all rookies. And in our league, the first round is mainly all rookies because we keep so many guys.
okay, so
We
it's
we
basically
are close
setting
to a
the,
to a full dynasty league, but we are not
got
a
it.
full dynasty league. But our
So you're
drafts
choosing
should
dynasty over
be
setting.
it. Yeah, it should be
Okay,
mostly all rookies in the
okay,
first round.
okay.
So I would say, oh, Steve, you can go ahead with your proposal, and I'll cook this trade up
Yeah.
for you.
So I have Walsh pushing his chips all in. I had CD Lamb also as a trade
Okay.
target here. I have CD Lamb going to the Bijan Honey Badgers for a 2025 first and a second. The difference between him and Tyreek being age. I think that might warrant a little sweetener in the deal.
So it's Bijan for
It's
Tyreek
CD
at first.
Lamb.
Oh
It's
boy.
CD Lamb for a first and a second. I call that the team name. So that's
Okay.
it. CD for a first and a second.
D for first and a second. Guru, what do you think?
I think that's interesting. I think it really comes down to what does Hathaway think his situation is? Like, as somebody that's hot right now, is he going to try to sneak in and sort of do the opposite thing that he's done in the past, which is have a dominant regular season and then fizzle out? Does he think maybe if he sneaks in and he can go on a run, kind of pull an opposite move there? I think if he thinks he's out, I like it. Um, if he thinks he's got a shot, he's probably not going to do it.
I don't think he should do it. I think he keeps Lamb in that scenario. Interesting idea for Walsh to go all in. Definitely need some help at receiver. CD Lamb and Garrett Wilson would be quite a combo, but I think Hathaway should keep Lamb and probably try to get a better return. The calculator favors that deal for CD Lamb. Speaking of the calculator, your on-air negotiations to get it done in terms of what a fair value would be. It'd be Tyreek Hill for Kyler Murray and a third.
Hmm.
And I think I'd rather get a first from Robbie if I was you, Guru, but that's just me.
Well, obviously.
25. We'll call Robbie a mid first. And the first round pick is more valuable than Tyreek Hill. So I think you'd be making out pretty well in that trade. Who knows if Robbie gets this far in the podcast anyway. My last trade, I forgot I had one left, but I have Pete sending Devontae Smith and Keon Coleman to Hoban for Nico Collins. Who says no, Steve? Devontae Smith and Keon Coleman to Hoban for Nico Collins. You give him a player on the Eagles, not that old, mid-20s. You give him a rookie in Keon Coleman with a lot of upside, and Pete gets back Nico Collins, who had a breakout season before he got hurt, upgrades his wide receiver room as we were trying to do earlier.
That's really fair. I don't think either one of them say no. I think that's sort of a slam dunk.
Let's call it into the league. Pete, Hoban, let's do it. Let's make some moves
fax
here.
machine. Hit the old fax machine.
Guru, what do you think?
Little risky to Pete for me, just because you got to make that trade before seeing Nico come back. I think, again, if the deadline was the next week and Nico had a decent week this weekend and looked fine, whether or not he put a ton of points up, sort of irrelevant. But if he seems okay, then I really like it for both teams. I think it just might be a little risky for Pete, but maybe it's a good risk to take, right? Because if he comes back and he's Nico, that's a great trade.
I feel good about it if I'm Pete because Stephon Diggs is out for the season anyway. And I'm reassured by the fact that when Stephon Diggs was there, Nico was like the number one wide receiver in fantasy. I think they should both do it, but I don't know if it actually gets done. Again, trade deadline Saturday. Get your trades in. Make it happen. Let's make some moves. And we move on. We got a final segment tonight that I threw together in about 10 seconds, but I think it should be fun. I'm going to need a top 3 answers from both of you on all of these questions. The segment is called the Sports Edge Fantasy Football League Manager That. And then I will read you a phrase, and then I need you to fill it in. I will start with you, Guru, for the first question. The Sports Edge Fantasy Football League Manager that would win a 40-yard dash is blank.
I think you're looking at the top 3.
Wow. Do you have them ordered, or you just have them just?
I would win. I feel confident. Past that, I'm not sure.
Okay, Steve, who do you have?
I have Dan winning that one. I'm putting myself second, and I had a tie between Guru and Robbie. I have no idea how fast Robbie is or isn't, but
Robbie is fast. I don't have him in my top 3 though. Thank you guys for putting me in this top 3. My top 3 is you two and Hoban.
Okay.
I think Hoban's sneaky quick.
He might be.
Division 1 athlete. I know you guys are quick. I don't know. I have 2 kids. Another one on the way. So we're not running too much these days, guys. Question number 2, Steve, we'll start with you. And it's not intentional based on the question. It's just I started with Guru in the first one. I'm starting with you in the second one. The Sports Edge Fantasy Football League manager that has smoked the most weed in their lifetime is blank.
Real quick, to be clear, the first 3 questions are absolutely directed at me, regardless of the order you're presenting.
You are in my top 3 of all 3 of them. I will say that.
I'm honored. Most Ganj. I have Zan's number 1.
Okay.
I'm going to cop out here. I'm taking a tie across the Rusty Trombone housemates for second place. And then I'm going to put Robbie in third place.
Interesting. So that's you, Walsh, and Hath tied for second. Robbie is 5th.
Yeah.
Okay. Guru, who you got?
Well, I felt like I had to give Robbie number 1. He came on the pod and told a story where he was smoking a bong in the story. So I felt like that shot him up the rankings, right? Then I went Walsh and Steve. Those were my 3.
Interesting. So you didn't have Zans in there. Steve, I had you and Zans, and then I had Hath and Robbie tied for 4th. Shame on me for not. Maybe Walsh just was stoned and I didn't realize that I didn't have him in the top 3 here, or I guess my top 4. Sorry, Walsh, or I guess good on you. Question number 3, Guru, we're back to you. We do things like this a lot. We like golf. Who would win a golf tournament at the wheel? Which Sports Edge Fantasy Football League manager would win a golf tournament at the wheel? Give me your top 3.
I mean, I had Walsh and Steve. I thought those were obvious 1s and 2s in whatever order we put them. I don't even know who would be 3rd. I honestly don't know. I've never seen a lot of the other team golf. I know I'm not very good. I know you're not very good.
Yeah.
I didn't know where to go.
We would not win. We would not. We would not be. We would not medal. I don't think.
You guys will have to help me out. That was my 1-2, and then I wasn't. Oh, Hoban, probably Hoban. I'll go Hoban.
Steve, who do you got?
Before I get into mine, who's number 1 and who's number 2 there, Guru? I want to put your feet to the fire.
I
got to know.
I like this.
I mean, we've done nothing mean to you yet on this podcast. So I will say Walsh 1, Steve 2. We've got to stick it to you at some point. We've gone 30 minutes without doing that.
I literally I have this ranked the same exact way. I have Walsh 1, Steve 2, and I have a toss up for 3 between Hoban and Zans. And I'd
My
lean
third,
Hoban right now.
that's what my number three is too. I've got me taking down Walsh. There's some hubris here. Yeah, I've taken a lot of lessons inside baseball for you guys. Heading down to Kiowa Island for Thanksgiving, playing
This
some
guy.
golf down there. So I got to get ready. But
This
Walsh
tournament's at
and
the wheel. I'll have you know. I think going to
I
Kiowa is
understand.
gonna hurt you at the wheel.
Well,
Just keep that in mind.
I understand.
championship.
Walsh and I, it's a coin flip probably any given day.
I like it. Okay, we're rooting for Walsh. I like it a lot. All right, question 4, Steve.
Yes.
We'll start with you.
It's a lot of
The
fun.
Sports Edge Fantasy Football League manager that is the biggest fan of a sports team is, and I want you to
Walsh
name the
is
team too.
Yeah, Walsh is number one. Patriots season tickets. He grew up around the corner from the stadium. That's sort of a no-brainer for me. I have Guru number two with the Islanders. Favorite sport, and so far as I can tell, the team that he roots for the hardest. Number three is a toss-up: Pete and the Yankees, Hoban and the Eagles. And there's honorable mention if we include college teams.
I did
I've
include
got
college team. I
I've
did.
got Commish for Notre Dame and Hath for Michigan in there as well.
Yeah, not even my favorite team, but continue. Not in college football, just like of the teams I root for, but an honor to be mentioned.
So I got
Guru, who you got? Top 3.
All right, Walsh. I thought Walsh Pats was an easy one too. I went Pete, and then I just wrote Yanks Rags. I don't know which one he likes more, but I know he's big into both those. And he was
I
at the
think
World
the
Series.
Yanks, but
I
he'll
was thinking
correct us if
Yanks
we're wrong.
baseball. He was just the World
Yeah,
Series. I
yeah,
did put Yanks/Rags, so that
yeah.
was first on my list.
Do people call the Rangers the Rags, or am I missing something?
Only
I'm
people
learning
that
something new about hockey every
understand,
week in this.
only people that understand hockey history and how actually terrible they are if you really look at the numbers.
Andrew, do you know this, Steve? They call them the Rags.
I
Rags.
knew that because my wife's a Rangers fan, but I don't know the history behind it.
There's no
Okay.
history. They're just not a good fan.
Rags. Okay, all right.
Thanks. And then I had Stanzik for the Knicks. I had
There you
Stanzik.
go. There's some respect. Put some
A lot of
respect on the
Knicks
name.
talk from you lately, Stanzik. I felt like maybe it was recency bias, but I put that in there.
They did just lose by 1 point. I was watching one of these earlier questions. Jalen Brunson missed a fadeaway jumper that rimmed all the way out, and they lost by 1 point to the Bulls. Don't worry about it. For me, I think, 3 people that have been mentioned. I have Walsh for the Pats. I think that's pretty clear. Pete for the Yankees, and I have Hath for Michigan. That was my top 3 in no particular order, but I think probably in that order. I think we're back to you, Guru. Oh, this one's another one where Steve's going to answer himself. Who would win a one-on-one basketball tournament among members of the Sports Edge Fantasy Football League? Guru, give me your top 3.
I had no idea here. I did put Steve. I knew Steve could play. Past that, I wasn't sure. I mean, do you just go with the tall guys? It's
No, you don't.
one-on-one. But yeah, I honestly don't know. I have no idea. I mean, I've seen you play basketball, Stanzik. I've seen Steve. I think maybe I've seen Zans and maybe some intramurals. I'll put Zans in there. I honestly don't think I've seen anybody else play basketball in the league.
Steve, who you got?
I think Dan and I are probably the most qualified people to answer this
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
And I'm probably
I'm giving Zans the number one because he's undoubtedly in better shape than I am right now. He's doing
That's going to
CrossFit
come
all
up
the time.
later. Yeah.
I think that he'd take me down. If the games are to like 3 points and I can just jack threes, I'll throw myself in there as number two. And I've got Dan at 3, assuming that you're in good cardio shape. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think you could play defense on anybody,
Yeah.
wear him down, and then get yours.
I mean, it depends who I'm compared to. The rest of the league, I'm in great cardio shape. Like my own, compare me to 5 years ago, I'm probably not. I have the same exact order. I have Zan, Steve, and then myself. Our league not great in terms of hoopers.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but I didn't know if I didn't know something.
I didn't realize that till I wrote the question. I was like, holy shit, I'm in the top 3.
Yeah,
I was
I guess
stunned.
those are the only 3 people I've ever seen play basketball in the league.
Yeah.
Were those 3, so that's kind of who I had too, but I wasn't sure.
Steve, we go to you on this one. I'm interested in your guesses because I don't know the right answer to this one.
I was going to ask.
The Sports Edge Fantasy Football League manager who had the highest GPA at Fairfield is blank.
I also have no. I know it's not me. That is
you were not considered for
me. Thank you, honored. We have a CFO of a worldwide company or a company that operates worldwide. We have an attorney and we have a doctor. So those are my 3 in that exact order.
Guru, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, I started off my first thought was, God, I hope it's Kessler. I hope that if we have a doctor, he had the highest GPA that would feel appropriate. So I had him in there. Then I went same thing. I went based on profession. I have no idea if that's accurate or not, but went with Robbie as a lawyer, Pete as a CFO. Those are my three. I have no idea though. Stanzik was a close fourth. I feel like
I'm
you probably.
pretty sure I'm in the top three.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I'm
I had you
pretty
right
sure
after
I'm in
that.
the top three.
Yeah.
I have Robbie and Pete joining me in the top three. I live with Kess. Pretty sure he's outside the top three.
Don't sleep on B. Walsh.
Can everyone post their GPA in college? Can we
I'm not even
find
sure
out
I
what we
know
got?
that. I have to go look it up.
Do you know what yours
Major
were?
or overall?
Overall.
I know mine.
Oh, really?
We're talking numbers?
3 flat for me.
Okay. Guru?
I feel like it was higher than that, but I don't know off the top of my head. I have to go try to figure that out.
Over under 3.5.
I think probably just under is my guess.
Okay.
Probably like
I
three,
believe
four.
mine's a 3.67.
That's
So we'll
definitely
see.
higher.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'd have to look into that.
That's
Can you look
about
that? How would you even look that up?
I think it's on my resume.
That's how I know mine. It's on the resume.
Yeah. And I think that's about as nerdy as we've ever been in this podcast. So we'll move on to a question. I again had no idea how to answer this one. The Sports Edge Fantasy Football League manager that is the best cook is blank. Steve, we start with you.
Best question of the bunch. First of all, shout out to Steve Casado, another 2008 Fairfield Stag. If you guys don't follow his YouTube thing, he's a legit chef. He has like 100 to 200,000 followers on YouTube. He's had guest stars, celebrities, whatever on there. Check it out. It's really good. Is it going to be a dad that gets called from the bullpen to cook dinner, or is it going to be, a childless person that can take all the time?
I took a different tact, but I like your thought process.
I'm putting myself number one without
Wow.
knowing anything else. Grew up like mom would cook all the time. I'd cook with her, whatever. Watch a lot of cooking shows. That's our bread and butter here before we go to bed. And then my wife likes to book us reservations whenever we travel at some, trendy places. So a lot of new ideas flowing. Number two, I have Zan's. I have no idea. He just seems like he knows his way around a kitchen. And I have Pete at number three. I feel like there's some good family recipes in that household that are coming out.
Can I tell you a quick Pete story before we
Please.
continue? Freshman year, I hope I get the details to this story correctly. But I believe he lived next door to LBD Simone, another baseball player. Great guy. Yeah, I don't know how well you guys know LB. And he has told me the story on multiple occasions. Again, I hope I have it correctly. But Pete came into his room once and was like, dude, can I or maybe Pete had himself. It doesn't matter. But the moral of the story is Pete came in his room. He's like, dude, I'm having trouble cooking my Easy Mac. You guys remember the Easy Macs in college? You put them in the microwave. And suddenly, like, smoke is coming out of his microwave. And he's like, Albie, you got to help me, dude. Come in. Pete forgot to put water in the Easy Mac cup. And there was smoke coming out of his microwave in freshman year. Pete was not considered for me. Guru, who do you have?
Well, that makes me immediately want to change my GPA answer. That sounds
No,
like
I think
damning critique of.
I think the book smarts.
Okay, I had a similar thought process to Steve. I hate to say that, but
it's embarrassing. I know
it is. I thought maybe so for me. I thought maybe somebody that's lived on their own for a while and had to become a decent cook. But number one, I also agree with Steve. I just put Zanzarella. I figured.
Last name sounds like mozzarella. Got to go with Zanzarella.
100% Italian sounding name.
Yeah.
New York area guy. Like it. I like that. I'm just gonna hope that he got some family recipes and he's whipping up some good stuff there. So I had him on there, and then I went Walsh and Hoban thinking maybe we go down that route, and they've been cooking up the storm and learning how to do that. And I can tell you that I am not the answer. So that was my thought process.
I respect
Walsh
Steve. I respect Steve for putting himself on the list. And like confident in his own cooking abilities. That as little respect as we show Steve on this podcast, I do respect him for that. My tact on this, as I mentioned, was different than yours. I went with the Italian guys. Kess, who I lived with, easy on the top three. Zans and Robbie, all from the New York area, all Italian. Probably can all make a mean chicken parm. That's the way I answered it. But again, I could be way off. And I don't know if I'll ever get the real answer to that question. Like, how would we know unless we had some sort of cook-off? But I thought it was interesting either way. I think we're back to you, Guru. Who would be the best at karaoke in the league? Give me your top three.
So my feeling on karaoke is that you need to understand your audience, you need song selection, and you need stage presence. Everything else doesn't matter for
Sounds like
karaoke.
the guru is going to be in his own answer after that. I love it.
Karaoke. So for me, number one was Stanzik. I felt like you would nail all three of those things. You would figure out what song to pick. You'd pick the right song, and you would just own it. So I went with you. Similar thought process, Hoban. I figured Hoban has the band background, not to mention being able to do those three things. Then I really didn't know. I put myself, but I don't know how I feel about that. I didn't really know who the third was. I felt you and Hoban were a strong one too.
I like it. Steve, who you got?
All right, before I go to mine, what would your go-to song be, Guru? If you're putting yourself on the top three, I feel like you have
Yeah.
something in the chamber ready to fire.
I mean, it entirely depends on the audience, like I just said. So I don't know exactly what I would pick, but I can tell you that a definite option would be We Didn't Start the Fire, considering I know all the lyrics without looking at the screen. So I feel like that's usually a hit at the, a party, a bit of a party trick, if you will.
Well,
It's a
how
good
have you
pick.
been hiding this from the podcast? That's like a life goal of mine. You have it all memorized. I mean, I guess
Is
you
it?
grew up on Long Island, but
I mean, they kick you off the island if you don't learn the lyrics to that song. That's how it works. You can't come back over the bridge.
I've seen it once in I'm not a big karaoke attender or singer, but I have seen someone do it once, and I was like, that is really impressive. Steve, we're on you.
Honorable mention to Dwyer, who would be the obvious
Yeah.
number one in this
Of course.
league.
I
If he was
thought of
not
him
here.
when I thought of the question, honestly.
And I've seen him do karaoke, and it is
Yeah, he is
unbelievable.
Yeah.
clear number
So
one.
wherever you are, Dwyer, I hope you're killing it with Supermod. Number one, I have the Commish. Same
Nice.
exact thesis that we have from Guru. Zero fear, and the stage presence would, he'd light it up. Number two, I have Hathaway, and
He's on my list.
I agree that you need the stage presence. He's just got a good voice, no hetero. He really
Yeah.
does.
He's got the look. He's got the look of a good karaoke singer. The hair.
Maybe a metal song, yeah, if you can
Yeah.
headbang. Although,
Yeah.
so Hoban's my number three for that reason.
Mhm.
And then I'll give myself an honorable mention only because I want to mention that my go-to is Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen. It's a great karaoke song for anyone that's
excellent.
getting up on stage.
How do you
Wow.
feel about the length? It feels a little long.
It's true.
Yeah, but you know what? Stage presence, air guitar. If you have a wired mic, you can do a little Roger Daltrey there, and you can swing it. The establishment usually doesn't like when you do that because you could break their equipment, but fuck them.
Yeah, fuck
Interesting.
yourself.
Before I give you my top three, of which I'm not on my own top three, even though you guys both had me at one, I appreciate that. On a buddy's bachelor party in Niagara Falls years ago, similar to what you were saying, we had this guy who was like, let's do karaoke, but was too scared to do it himself. So of course he was like, Stanzik will do it with me. So we did it. And we sang the song, I think it was Hinder, Lips of an Angel. Is that the song? Does that sound familiar?
Not off the top of my head.
All I remember is that
Yeah.
Kessel now. Kess used to sing that song all the time. We changed the lyrics very not creatively. We just changed from lips to tits and belted it very loudly. We were in like a public square. No one really thought it was that funny. My answer, you guys clearly don't listen to what I say in this podcast, but last week I mentioned how Robbie was the lead singer of a punk rock band, so he is number one on my list. Would have been number two to Dwyer, but Robbie is number one. I have Hoban also in a band, stage presence. He's number two. And then we already mentioned Hath is on my list. Hath is number three. I forget who we start with here, but we have who would win in a beer pong tournament. Steve,
This
I
one's
think.
me to start.
Okay, yeah. Who do you got?
Yeah.
This is a lot of ego talking here.
Yeah.
1,000%. But there you can measure it. There was
Yeah.
the classic March Madness tournament of 2008 at Big Fucking Nice House.
That was a rapid fire tournament, which I think is a
Was.
little different. But
Three
yes.
on three
It's-
rapid fire. Yes.
Yes.
That's right, but it's a proxy for the
Yeah.
measurement, and
Yeah, we don't have a lot of data on this one.
exactly. So I have Zanz at number one because he won that tournament, and I believe Robbie was on his team. I know Priya was, but I
Priya,
think Robbie
yeah.
was on the team. I have them 1-2 because if Robbie wasn't on the team, he's at least in the house with the champ, so he's going to get some good reps. And then I have Hath and I tied for three because we were the runners up in said tournament.
Who was
So
your
when in
third?
doubt, go with the data. AJ Maugiri was our third.
Wow, was that the heavy
Yeah.
AJ or the thin AJ
Somewhere in between.
in college?
In college, somewhere in between. At that point, he used to go
No, I
to
mean,
the
wasn't
gym.
there a kid named
Oh,
AJ
yeah,
who was
there's-
skinny, and there was a kid named AJ who was fat? or
No,
fatter?
they're the same person. He got
No,
skinny
no,
as
no,
he
no, no.
went along. There's
Weren't there two
little AJ
AJs?
Restrano.
Okay,
There's
yeah, yeah.
little AJ, and then big AJ is how it was. It wasn't skinny fat.
Okay,
It was
little,
big
little,
little.
big, skinny fat. Steve, it's been 15
Well,
years. Please.
yeah. What AJ used to do is he would go to the gym and then chain smoke menthols all morning afterwards, and that's how he got skinny. So
Okay, Guru, who's your top three here?
So I can't believe how much I'm agreeing with Steve on this podcast. It's very
Yeah,
exciting. I have
we
the
should just
same
not
thought
not
process.
release it to the public.
I remembered the tournament. I remembered Zan's winning. I did not know that Robbie was on his team off the top of my head. So I put Zan's one for that exact reason. After that, I put Steve. I just felt like maybe the basketball thing would come into play. I didn't know Steve came in second, so I feel really good about that pick now. And then hubris, I went with me.
Attaboy.
I can
Proud of
battle
you.
back. I think I can battle
Proud
back
of you.
and bring,
Yeah.
little clutch shooting to this game. Clutch
Yeah.
shooting.
I lived with Pete and Cass junior year. My teammate was Pete, so I have Pete at number one. I have Zans at number two. We mentioned the tournament. I was pretty sure he had won that thing. And then third, I have myself and Hoban with a battle to the death of who would win. Because there was a story where Hoban claimed he made 12 shots in a row one night. He was really drunk at our house. I was really mad at him. So I had to give Hoban at least a nod, but I think it was much better than he was. Last question.
Real quick.
Yes, please.
That's a top 3 day of senior year, is it not? I think it is.
Great day.
That was a great day. Yeah, I don't know if I'd rank it at top three, but it was a great day.
Forget about like senior week and all the actual organized stuff,
yeah.
but I think that powder puff, and I'd have to think about the third, but I think those two are in the top 3 of the days that we had.
It's a good day. Definitely a good day.
That's a topic for another podcast. Top days at Fairfield.
Yeah, save it for later, Steve. Final question. We start with whoever wants to go first. And I don't know how to answer this one either, but which manager could bench press the most weight? I kind of alluded to this one earlier. Who goes first here?
It's me. I have no idea. I put Pete and Zans, and then I have no idea who to go third. I don't know.
I think Zans is the clear one here because he actually works out. I feel like most of these answers happen to be Zans. I mean, it's about time we put a little respect in the champ's name.
It's true. I've been apologizing to Zans for weeks. This is
you're making up for it here, finally.
I kept listening to him.
I have Zans, Pete, and I put Hoban on there.
That was my thought, but I wasn't sure.
I didn't feel great about it, though.
I didn't feel good about it either.
Yeah.
I've got
Steve is thinking.
I've got Zans, Pete, and then I was wondering if Kess might be three. He's a bigger guy, and his wife, as active and athletic as she is, does she get him into it? I don't know.
Yeah. All right, well, Hoban, Kess, let us know who throws more weight around out of the two of you, because I think that's where we're going to have to leave it. Steve, thank you for filling in and pinch hitting tonight. You were not as miserable as we make you out to be.
Boys, the pleasure was on your side of the screen. I promise you that.
There you go. Guru, thanks as always.
See you guys.
We kind of cannibalize our audience because 3 of us are here, which means there's a maximum of 7 of you that could be watching this. So for you 7 out there, thank you for watching. Good luck in week 11.